we said in the last lecture that virtualization is the foundation of cloud computing. So there are many things you can virtualize, including the server, the network, as well as application. So let's talk first about the notion of virtualization. As stated here, virtualization is the cloud engine. So you basically can run several operating systems on a single machine. Here you have a physical machine. It could be a server machine. Typical operating system would be managing all the resources such as the hard drive, the memory, as well as the I/O for this particular server. And then you would run applications over the server through the operating system. Typically, you would use only about 8% of the computing or storage of this server system. The notion of virtualization here would be to run a middleware between the hardware and multiple instances of operating systems for which the applications are run over these virtualized operating systems. For that matter, you can generate as many of these virtual machines as you would like it to be and run a number of applications over each of these virtual machines. And this would increase utilization because you can make virtual machines as they are needed. When your customer wants to run another email server or database server, then you can, at that point, create a virtual machine which consists of the operating system. On top of that, you run application. So the utilization can be as high as 90%, very similar to that you can timeshare the single hardware among multiple users. Now, the process of virtualization involves the abstraction of the hardware by the software so that you can scale up the number of virtual servers on a single hardware machine. If you look at the data center shown here, really the management of the data center is very complex. You can see that you have a number of servers as well as scope to make diagnosis, and also a mumbo-jumbo of cables connecting servers to storage devices as well as to the network. So the idea is to really consolidate all these things, the hardware, all the servers, into, for example, a rack of servers as well as racks of storage devices. You have the server on the left-hand side here and the storage devices on the right-hand side, and then create a hypervisor, which is basically a middleware between the individual hardware and the virtual machines that sit on top of your hardware. So it makes things a lot more scalable. In fact, you can generate a lot more virtual machines, hundreds of virtual machines on a single piece of hardware. Now, this is a very important slide, and we'd like to spend some more time on this, is the notion of a cloud computing service stack. Effectively, you have, at the very bottom, the hardware. These are the switches, routers, storage networks, as well as the servers that you have, the I/O devices that you have. And these things people would need to buy and also need to spend a lot of money managing them. On top of that, you need to pay a lot of power, utility in order to run these hardware. All these, if you do cloud computing, will be gotten rid of. All you need would be network connections to the cloud, whereby the hardware is practically owned by the cloud service provider. So what you have is an infrastructure. Down there you have service, storage, and networking. And so the next layer, besides hardware, or you can call that hardware as a service, you have what is known as infrastructure as a service. What this really is that each company would be able to scale its requirement for three aspects, such as computing requirement, networking requirement, as well as storage requirement. As your company grows, you will need to scale up the amount of servers that you need, how much networking bandwidth you will need, and also how many terabytes of data you will need to store. Now, this infrastructure is provisioned or provided to you by the cloud service provider through infrastructure as a service. So as you require more server, the cloud computing service provider would create more virtual machines for you. As you require more storage, it would create more virtual disks for you. And if you need more switches to connect your servers as well as storage, it would provision also as much bandwidth that you will need. So the very important structure here, infrastructure as a service, allow the company to avoid an upfront investment in hardware. The next layer is called platform as a service, and these platforms are effectively entire computing platform for which you can have components and services as part of your platform. So in this case here, for example, a computing platform could be an Oracle database, or it could be a personal desktop as a platform for the end users, the individual end users, or there are other things that you may configure together so that the end user doesn't see these as individual infrastructure, such as network, computer, or storage, but a platform for which they can operate. So platform as a service effectively provide a complete system to the end users. And sitting on top of that is a much bigger layer, which is known as software as a service. For most of the end user, they really don't care that much about infrastructure, nor they care about the platform, such as a PC platform or a database platform, but what they care mostly about is software, or basically applications as a service. Here you talk about user interfaces, such as Google Map as an interface, machine interfaces. For example, YouTube could be providing a TV service, and you're running applications on top of the platform. Here, an application could very well be doctors maybe trying to pull out medical records, and also providing pharmacy order for their patient. So this is running application software, and the end user doesn't need to own the application software. All they need is really software as a service provided to them so that they don't need to download software, but they're running applications that is of great interest to a business. And of course, sitting on top of that would be clients, they could be lawyers, they could be doctors who would be subscribing to, say, software as a service to run their own business. So let me just repeat again. You can have hardware as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. By far the largest industry in this four layer is really software as a service, because that's really what the end users is most interested in. But infrastructure as a service could be of great interest to a big company. So here we see the view from the point of the network. You have the internet, and on one end of that you could have mobile computing devices like a laptop, personal computer which are not as mobile, or you have PDA phones or tablets which access internet. On the other side, you have the cloud provider, and they provide complete services. It could be Google, IBM, Apple, or Microsoft, and other cloud computing services. And underneath that, they would have to have these elements or layers for which they can provide infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service.